faithfully delivering value, interpreting great books from around the world.
Hi, this is Sally with the Book Talk.
Today, I'll be interpreting the book Praise and Blame for you. Everyone's life is filled with praise and blame. If you jot down your thoughts, you'll see we're constantly evaluating, and others are always focused on what others think of us. Like, did I let my parents down?
Is my boss or colleagues unhappy with me?
Why are we so concerned with praise and blame? The book argues that judging is in our nature, and we unconsciously bring it into every conversation. This judgment might not be spoken praise or blame. It could be facial expressions, eye contact, or body movements. Don't downplay this instinct. It's our brain's constant evaluations that keep us surviving and thriving. The author, Terry Apter, is a famous British psychologist and writer who teaches at Cambridge, and several of his books have been New York Times bestsellers. This book has been strongly recommended by outlets like The Times and The Guardian. In the book, the author reveals insights on praise and blame based on 30 years of research, how they come about, and how they impact us. Now, I'll break down this book for you in 3 parts. First up, why is judging part of human nature? Second, what shapes our judgment system? Third, how does praise and blame impact our daily lives? Let's dive into the first part. Why judging is innate to humans. We're born with a skill called mentalizing. It allows us to guess others' goals and feelings based on what they do. Studies find that even as babies, we can tell how others feel about us by their eyes and faces. For instance, a kid can size up a face in 40 milliseconds and decide in under 100 milliseconds. Whether they're likable or not, reliable or shady, friend or enemy, evolution-wise, mentalizing is key to our survival. As kids, we rely on caregivers to survive. If we can't read their attitudes, we wouldn't make it. Kids not only sense others' judgments, but also judge others from an early age. Psychological research shows children prefer people who share their interests and those who help others. This preference is hardwired in our genes, helping us evaluate whether approaching someone is safe. So, during interactions, we subconsciously weigh pros and cons while distinguishing who we like or dislike. Judgment isn't just our nature. Our brains have developed 2 separate evaluation systems. One is praise, the other is blame. Praise triggers oxytocin and endorphins. Oxytocin is called the bonding hormone. When oxytocin floods the brain, we become more trusting. Endorphins create feelings of pleasure. These pleasant hormones foster intimacy between people, making us want to stay close. Blame operates completely differently than praise. It triggers fear of rejection and expulsion. When blamed, our brain's amygdala activates. The amygdala sits at the core of our emotional center, handling memory and feelings. It reacts instantly, without thought. Once triggered, we skip reasoning and feel pure fear. Our ancestors relied on social groups for survival. Exclusion meant death. So when blamed, we instinctively feel fear and pain. We also feel pain when blaming others, because humans naturally empathize, sharing others' suffering. For example, a 1-year-old seeing another child fall gets nervous, soothing themselves by thumb-sucking or hair-pulling. All right, that concludes our first segment. Judgment is human nature and an evolutionary product. Everyone has both systems. Praise brings joy, blame triggers fear. This is universal. But have you noticed people handle judgment differently? For instance, when criticized for mistakes, some shrug it off thinking, I'll do better next time. Some people are very sensitive to blame, even to the point of being crushed by it. So what causes these differences? Now let's discuss the second aspect. What factors influence our judgment system? There are many influencing factors, but the book highlights 3 key ones. Family evaluation habits. First, family evaluation habits shape our internal judgment system. Family is the primary living environment in one's early years and the first place we receive praise and blame. Different families have different evaluation habits. In families with frequent praise, children become more tolerant of others and themselves, always seeing their own good qualities. In such families, children are usually allowed to freely express opinions and challenge parental authority. When children show negative emotions, parents don't blame them, but ask, why do you feel this way? This way children can express their feelings honestly. Even if children make mistakes, parents only blame the specific behavior without attacking their character. For example, parents might say, you made a mistake here, but you're a good kid who can do better. This kind of blame is meant to encourage, not accuse, guiding children toward improvement and helping them face the future positively. Therefore, when facing others' blame, children can judge right from wrong themselves without losing self-esteem from criticism. In contrast, blame-heavy families overlook each other's good points, but constantly find faults. Children rarely hear praise because parents have high standards, strict demands, and are authoritarian. Challenging their judgments is seen as unreasonable. In such families, children become insensitive to praise. Even if complimented, they don't feel they've done well.
Conversely, these children may be hypersensitive to blame. Even a look or subtle expression makes them feel blamed.
And if the slightest thing goes wrong, they blame themselves as stupid or useless, always fearing they'll disappoint others. The author believes the reason may lie in how blame affects neural pathways in the brain. Typically, when children are blamed, they go through an emotional control process from fear to calmness. As mentioned earlier, when someone is blamed, the brain's amygdala makes us feel fear. At this point, another part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, also kicks in. It steps in to remind the amygdala, don't be afraid, calm down. Then the brain starts thinking about whether we're actually at fault, allowing us to rationally analyze the problem and calm down. But if a child faces constant blame in life, their brain produces a lot of a hormone called stress hormone. This hormone, cortisol, interferes with the neural pathways between the amygdala and prefrontal cortex. As a result, the prefrontal cortex can't send messages to the amygdala. Over time, the calming prefrontal cortex might even start seeing blame as normal, and it stops alleviating panic from the amygdala. Therefore, children become overly sensitive to blame and fall into excessive anxiety and panic when blamed. Having covered family, let's now discuss the second major factor influencing human judgment systems. The emphasis on early friends is because during infancy and childhood, our brain develops rapidly, and early experiences are crucial in shaping our judgment systems. When we step out of our homes, our earliest friends help us examine and modify the judgment systems we built within our families. At the same time, they help us learn new rules of praise and blame, thus expanding our original judgment systems. For example, if your parents dislike you crying and blame you for not being strong enough whenever you cry, friends might comfort and support you instead. Similarly, when you face setbacks, parents might blame you, but friends could tell you, it's just a mistake and not your fault. This way, you realize that the judgment systems learned from family aren't always correct. Then you adjust your own judgment system. So the author says friends are mirrors and role models. We express ourselves through deep friendships. By seeing ourselves through friends' eyes, we boost our confidence. Another major impact of friends' evaluations is protecting our self-esteem, helping us view our worth objectively and fairly, without being swayed by others' negative judgments. And with friends, we worry. If I tell them this, will they dislike me like others? Will I lose this friend? But to get genuine praise, we risk showing our true selves, even when imperfect. Like in school, you're the good kid teachers and parents love, but you mess up and dare not tell anyone. When you tell your closest buddy, they don't judge but comfort you, even encourage confessing, helping you see you're not worthless. In a way, friendship is an umbrella for self-esteem. The validation you lack in family or social ties, friends often provide. While family and early friends lay our judgment system's foundation, it isn't set in stone.
As we age, we enter more complex relationships, marriage, work, etc. These all shape our personal judgment systems.
In the internet age, our brain's judgment systems face social media's influence. That brings us to the third factor.
A key impact of social media It addicts us to pleasure chasing but denies real fulfillment.
The author argues real fulfillment requires two elements: praise from active, responsive, real relationships, meaning we must feel a real person behind the judgment. On social media, we interact with followers or virtual friends, lacking real human connection,
The second element? Praise must come from meaningful actions or achievements.
like impacting others positively. But social media praise often lacks this foundation. A mere photo or post triggers dopamine, creating fleeting joy. This dopamine rush is short-lived. We quickly snap out of the happiness.
Chasing stronger highs, we get trapped in social media addiction.
Another major impact of social media on judgment systems is how easily people get drawn to malicious comments online, then attack others while their thinking narrows. There's a negativity bias where we tend to remember bad things. For instance, waiters remember non-paying customers, customers recall terrible restaurants, and negative online comments easily attract reactions. Whether supporting or opposing them, negative comments are inherently attention-grabbing. This creates a vicious cycle. The more people personally attack others online with harsher language, the more others join in. The core reason is social media strips away our empathy. Toxic commenters don't see online interactions as real relationships. They treat it like gaming with virtual characters. So when commenting online, they crudely divide people into allies and enemies. Once labeled an enemy, even if suffering, they get no sympathy from us. Worse, some sites use algorithms analyzing users' browsing history to determine attention-grabbing content. This traps users in echo chambers, one opinion voiced, others blindly agreeing, with only similar content shown. In these closed spaces, we only hear our own echoes, leaving no room for reflection while perspectives narrow. So that concludes our second aspect. 3 factors shape judgment systems: family of origin, early friends, and social media. Now for the third aspect, how praise and blame impact daily life. We'll examine marriage and work. First, marriage. Consistent praise and controlled blame are vital for success. The author believes effective praise is rooted in listening. When praising your partner, understand what they truly desire. If you refuse to hear their true thoughts, praise becomes a tool for your own agenda. It becomes a dictatorial form of praise used as a power tool. For example, the wife plans to work outside to earn more money.
So she wants to hire a full-time nanny, but the husband refuses.
He says, "You're the best at caring for our child. No one could do better than you." This sounds like praise, but the wife feels upset because he didn't consider her perspective. His praise only aims to keep her home, using their child to guilt trip her. Here, praise brings pressure instead of joy. So when praising partners, we must consider their perspective and understand their needs. But sustaining a good marriage requires more than praise. We must learn how to blame appropriately. Couples aren't forbidden from blaming each other, but must balance praise and blame. Psychologist John Gottman studied 3,000 couples for 40 years and found the key to lasting marriage isn't avoiding fights or shared interests. It's the praise to blame ratio. 48. Gottman discovered marriages thrive when praise outweighs blame by at least 5 to 1. Second, we must avoid blame pitfalls. The book details 2 traps. Falling into them severely damages relationships. First trap, overgeneralizing, turning a mistake into a character flaw. Attacking the person, not the issue, like arguing over TV shows escalating to personal insults. The wife accuses the husband of being selfish, neglectful, even calling him a parasite. Successful marriages require mutual admiration even during conflicts. When "you hurt me" becomes "you're a bad person," the marriage foundation crumbles. Second blame trap, focusing on accusations instead of solutions. Many couples waste energy blaming each other rather than solving problems together. Like when a couple's newly renovated home has a pipe burst. The husband blames the wife for cheaping out on contractors, while she blames him for poor inspection. Both shift blame instead of calmly discussing how to fix the pipe. As conflict escalates, emotions override reason. We constantly fault partners while playing victims. The blamed become numb and cold, entering stonewalling, a shutdown state. In this state, hearing dulls, vision narrows, the brain stops processing, unable to listen, let alone understand partners. This makes continued cohabitation nearly impossible. The controlling blame in marriage is hard due to superiority bias, feeling deserving of more praise, less blame. Well, we easily remember our kindness to others while unconsciously dismissing negative feedback about partners. So we must respect the power of praise and blame. Mind our words, learn to praise while minimizing flaws and highlighting strengths. On the other hand, be more forgiving toward partners. When marriages fill with negative judgments, calmly seek solutions. If someone errs, focus criticism on specific actions, not define mistakes as character flaws. Having covered marriage, let's examine how judgment systems affect workplace dynamics. We'll focus on workplace bias, nearly omnipresent. Psychologists use implicit association tests, measuring how quickly we label certain people. For instance, some favor men over women or prefer big-eyed people while discriminating against small-eyed ones. IAT commonly detects workplace gender bias, how quickly people link gender to roles or abilities. Studies show most associate women with supportive or auxiliary roles, and men with career leadership and power. This bias makes it easy to overlook women's contributions in the workplace. Many leaders view women's work as supportive, and they can't contribute much.
Valuable insights! Even scientists expose deep-seated gender bias when evaluating individuals.
In a study, 127 faculty members from prestigious science departments were invited to evaluate job applicants' abilities, potential, salary, etc. Researchers intentionally used identical resumes, only altering the names. Results showed that when applicants had male names, their ratings were consistently higher than with female names. What's even scarier is that this bias comes not only from others, but also becomes part of our self-assessment. Sometimes we think we're strong enough to resist negative biases, but actually not. Even former UK Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher faced a confidence crisis. She specifically underwent voice training to change what others called a shrill, noisy female voice. And she insisted she never liked noisy women, but unconsciously, she became someone who judged women unfairly. Why is workplace bias so hard to change? The author believes an important reason is that bias stems from a learning mechanism in the brain. Our brains absorb knowledge from past experiences to predict future situations. For example, if we've seen a pen, the brain remembers it. Next time we see it, we recognize it as a pen. Similarly, when communicating with others, our brains record their speech and behavior and predict reactions based on past information. This learning pattern helps us recognize new things and acquire skills, but it also causes bias, distorting our judgment systems. We absorb various ideas from past experiences, others' opinions, articles, movies, and even cultural atmosphere, forming a collection of concepts. Mentioning a specific group instantly activates related information from this collection. Even if we think we're fair and unbiased, biased concepts can suddenly surface. Even extremely minor features can trigger temporary biases. For example, when we see a model's photo, we pay more attention to her appearance. Another example, when we see women portrayed as airheaded fools in ads, we lower our expectations of women's intelligence. In the workplace, it's hard to change these biases, so it's more necessary to take measures at the company level to reduce workplace bias. For instance, many biases stem from a lack of understanding of others. Therefore, some coaches who specialize in training corporate executives will train managers to group employees with different personalities and work styles together, like optimistic people who focus more on the positive. As a result, they always see the company's achievements, while pessimistic people are more likely to see the negatives. As a result, they love to find problems. In terms of work styles, some people prefer to use statistics, while others trust their intuition more. Grouping these people together. Actually, it's also training leaders to become familiar with different personalities and work styles, learning to understand and embrace diversity, thereby reducing bias. All right, with that said, we've pretty much covered praise and blame. Whether we like it or not, judging and being judged accompany us throughout our lives. Only by understanding how our brain's judgment mechanism works and reflecting on it can we truly master this judgment system, understand what kind of evaluation is truly meaningful, and find the best way to interact with others and with ourselves. All right, praise and blame. That's the end of this book interpretation for you. Listening notes are below the audio. See you next time.